My name is Kaitlynn Webster. I work with 126 Artist Run Gallery in Galway, and I had the opportunity to curate the member show for Artlink this year. The title is Bring the Mind Home, which I was given the overall theme of Tourists for Journey. And immediately when I was given the theme, I started off 2021 driving around Connemara with a John O'Donohue book. And there was a quote in there that I immediately thought of, and the ending line says something about bringing the mind home. And that just speaks to me so much of the past year and a half or so, because in terms of physical journeys, we've been very restricted as to, our 2-kilometer radius and a 5-kilometer radius. We haven't gotten to take the holidays we wanted, but we've gotten a lot of time with ourselves, journeys within the mind, which for me has been really beneficial for my practice, and I think me as a person overall. And I thought it'd be interesting to reflect on that. And so with the call out, I put out bringing the mind home, reflecting on those different kinds of more mental journeys everybody took. And I was really delighted to see the responses that came in from that, and all the different ways that people reflected on, the journeys that they've taken in the last year. The members, it was a really wide, even though kind of the theme is about being physically restricted, the spread of the members definitely is not. We've got all over Ireland, we've got from Scotland, we've got from Canada even. And I think that also speaks to the time that we're in, because even though we've been physically restricted, we've had to go online so much. That's also kind of expanded our reach. It's so much easier to have community across the world when we're all in this digital space. And so this show is kind of the coming together of both the physical restriction and how much wider our spread and our ability to connect has become. So I think curating a member show is definitely a unique experience as far as curating shows goes, because you have all of these submissions and you select each piece with this individual care, and then you get into the space and you see them all together, and every piece then becomes different because they're suddenly in conversation with these other pieces. And so the unique challenge is installing it in a way that makes those conversations very accessible. So, you have this one group of pieces, all those pieces talk to each other, they talk to the next group, and so on. And then as you look back across the room, you get a different conversation, and it just creates this really, really cool, interwoven, holistic narrative of all of the members' experiences that then, as you're walking through it, you add your own experiences to. So in spaces like Artlink and 126, where we are member organizations, members are our lifeblood. That is what keeps us going, what keeps the organization alive. And I think one function definitely of member shows like this is to show appreciation for that, to say thank you, to make sure that you have a platform in the space that you are a part of, that you are keeping alive. But also, these kinds of shows are so important because you see work that you probably would never see next to each other. And you get these really unique stories created, and you give platform to so many more stories. And that's really important to see in art spaces, I think, is to see as wide a range of stories and narratives as possible, and member shows make that really easy. I think having these established artists kind of next to more, like they might call themselves hobby artists, or they might not refer to themselves as artists at all. I think having them in this space together really kind of just flattens that hierarchy that we so often create, where like this art is better than this art. But somebody walks through this show and something from somebody who doesn't consider themselves an artist can be just as emotive as someone who's more established. And so that's good art. And you see good art across all levels of experience, of training. And I think it's really cool to have a chance to just flatten that hierarchy and bring everything to this one level and see that it all belongs there as well. My whole curatorial practice, I think, I'm really interested in just interrogating that idea, because we adopt so many hierarchies in fine art spaces, even in like artist-led spaces where it's meant to be about challenging the status quo. It's so easy to still fall into it. So I think just like it's important to keep pushing and interrogating, like, well, why is this considered better? Or why is this considered fine art? Or this is considered craft? Or do we need to have that? Like, I like when it all has a place. It all belongs together. And it's an easy thing to do in a member show, is to show that, hey, all this stuff is equally valid. It's all equally vital to constructing a holistic narrative. And it should be treated as such, I think. It's very much interdisciplinary as far as visual arts goes. I mean, we do have a bit of poetry up, but there's paintings, there's drawings, there's film, there's sculptures, which I think everybody responds to art in different ways. And like, I know for myself, like installation style things, that helps me embody the narrative the most. But for other people, it's like you really dive into a painting. And the fact that so many of those different forms are represented means that there are more chances for people to interact in different ways, or interact in the way that best suits them. Which I think it's cool to think that everybody that comes in here has an equal chance to get as much from the exhibit as possible. Yeah, it's nice that this isn't, like it is a white cube still, but it's not like the typical white cube space, which is so often intimidating for people. The fact that people can just they're wandering around, they're seeing pretty stuff, they're seeing the military museum, or wanting to. And instead, they accidentally come into an art exhibition that they may not have chosen to come to, but you end up in here anyway. And I think the fact that you can just wander in, that makes it really accessible. And once you're in, you're pulled in. You can't help but walk around. Like, you have to check it all out. So it's nice to have that extra reach. And the fact that it is, I think, set up in such an accessible way kind of adds to that. Yeah, you have to make the space accessible in some way. Like, it can't be cold. It can't be like up on this high pedestal that you can only understand if you went to 4 years of art school. It has to be something, I think it's kind of a failure if a space is only accessible for artists. It should be easily accessible to everybody to come in and get the most out of it. But I think it definitely helps that people are already coming here wanting to get something, wanting to take in something a bit new probably. And they might think it's the landscape. They might think it's the military museum. But wait, it's actually the art. As people that work in art spaces, we're not the gatekeepers of this unique world perspective. I think it's meant to be this much more rhizomatic thing, where it's a give and a take, it's an exchange. I think art should be viewed as an exchange, as a vehicle for exchange. I mean, I was so excited to get to do this because I feel like member shows specifically are so in line with my curatorial interests and with the things that are important to me about art spaces. And so it's definitely a privilege to get to be involved in